I did a 96-hour fast, and this is what I learned. Welcome to another episode of the Health Movement Podcast. I'm Derek, your host, a teacher of over 20 years and a certified personal trainer. And I want to go through my experiences with a 96-hour fast so that hopefully if people deem this as something they want to do and something that they can do safely, that I want to give you as much information as I can. And with that, I do want to reiterate, as I always do, I'm not a doctor. I don't have a medical degree or anything like that. This is just a recap of my experiences. So before you go doing anything like this, please double check with your doctor to make sure that you are healthy enough to do something of this nature. With that said, when I started doing this, I was posting online that I was doing this, and I did kind of a daily update. People were really cool reaching out, people I hadn't heard from in a while, just saying, I think that's awesome. Let me know how it goes, that sort of thing. But aside from that, a lot of people were asking why was I trying to do this? And before I give you my results, and these are all anecdotal, I didn't have a DEXA scan or blood work or anything like that. And depending on the growth of the show, and that's what I want to get into a little bit later, I would love to do this again. And my plan is to do this every 4 months because I found it beneficial. There you go. I didn't bury the lead very well there, but it's something I see the value in. So I'm going to keep doing it, but I would love to be able to come back with more concrete numbers to give people. I do have some. I definitely lost weight during this. Obviously, I didn't eat, but I wanted to make sure you understood the why before I get into that. In terms of weight loss, if that's your goal, if you're doing this to lose weight, if that's your motivation behind it, please don't listen to this episode. Or maybe listen to it, but immediately listen with an open mind, because that can't be your end goal. It maybe can be a very small, minuscule part of it. But if you want to lose weight, I think there are better avenues to take that are more sustainable. You can't go forever without eating. So it's something where if you have long-term weight loss goals, you're going to have to do a lot of lifestyle changes as well. This can't be the lifestyle change. Obviously, you can't go forever without eating. But anyway, 96-hour fast. I had great conversations with Brittany Zedek and Joe Orton on the show, who both practiced this. And Joe had mentioned that he was going to start this after Thanksgiving, the Sunday after Thanksgiving. After talking with him, thinking back on my conversation with Brittany and then doing my own research, looking at Dr. Andrew Huberman, Dr. Peter Attia, who I have an incredible amount of respect of. And then I watched a show called Limitless on Disney Plus. If you have it, it's worth a watch, with Chris Hemsworth. He was on season 1, episode, well, he's on all of them, but the season 1, episode 3 focus was on fasting. And Dr. Peter Attia was on that and put Hemsworth through a 96-hour fast. And as he's going through it, Dr. Attia is going through the benefits and all the different phases. So for me, it was incredibly beneficial to see the why and really truly understand it. So I'm going to do my best to break this down quickly for you. This will be a much shorter episode, probably in the 20 to 25 minute range, but I think it's a valuable one. So I'll get started with my original why. And I think at this point in time in my life, I will be 47 in a month, or at the end of this month, actually. You start to realize the focus and the purpose of life kind of changes. When you're younger, you kind of just enjoy yourself, or you get up, you do what you do in a normal day. There's a quote though from one of my favorite movies, and I remember seeing this with my buddy Lon down the Cape. Both our families went down separately, and we both happened to be there, and we were like, hey, let's go watch Braveheart in theaters together. And I remember a line from that movie where William Wallace says, every man dies, but not every man really lives. And you think about how much of our lives we spend simply going to work, working, coming home, making dinner, taking the kids to practice, going to sleep, waking up, doing the same thing again and again. And it turns into this repetitive nature where after, you blink and 6 months go by, and 12 months go by, and 5 years go by, and you're existing. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to simply exist. I want to try and live each day as best I can and give myself the best chance to enjoy a healthy and fulfilling life. And that starts with your health. If your health isn't in check and you're sick or you can't move and you have all these things holding you back, then you can't really live to your full extreme, to the full purpose that you might have. So a lot of this came from that piece where I want to see what I'm actually capable of. I want to see physically, I want to see mentally, I want to see purposefully what I'm actually capable of accomplishing. So it goes deeper than, hey, can I go 96 hours without eating? Yes, I knew I could. It wasn't, can I do this? I'm a little stubborn at times. So I knew, all right, if I say I'm going to do it, and I'm not always the best at following through, this one I knew I would. I didn't question whether or not I'd be able to do it. I just didn't know if it would be as beneficial as I thought it would. So I'm going to go through day by day what happens as best I can. As I said, I'm not a doctor. I don't have a degree in any of this. I don't have years and years of experience and research, but I can listen to the people who have, the people that I trust, and I'll explain kind of through their eyes what happens as you go on. So my last meal was Sunday evening at 6 p.m. I had a relatively healthy meal, and I tried not to eat much sugar that day because from what I saw and what I read, if you have a lot of sugar, then it kind of delays some of the gratifications of your 96-hour fast. I wanted to just jump right into it. So I had, like a nice salad with grilled chicken and very little ranch dressing on there, which, by the way, ranch is definitely the best choice for any dressing on a salad. So I had that about 6 p.m. Then I went to bed at, I don't even remember, 9:30. Another thing I saw was you want to make sure your water levels are good and your sodium's good, your electrolyte levels are good. So I was drinking Element. It's LMNT. I'll put a link in the description. I'm not sponsored by them. I have an Amazon link where I think I get a cup of coffee. I drink coffee, but that's the equivalent if you go through the link and get some of that. So I was using that to build up my sodium, potassium, and magnesium, which are things that will help you drastically during the fasting window that day. And I'll get into that in a minute, which was good to get started like that. I drank too much water though, so my sleep was all messed up Sunday night because I kept having to get up to go to the bathroom. So I had woken up at 2 a.m. and normally I get up around 4 to go to the gym, 3:45 to 4:15, somewhere in there. And I'll walk to the gym. I'll do my workouts and all that. But that morning I woke up at 2 and I couldn't fall back to sleep. So I had already started on only, 5 hours of sleep, and I definitely know that's not enough. So regardless, got up, did my walk to the gym. I worked out. I usually do a 2 or 3 mile loop of walking afterwards, and then I come back, and that's when I usually eat. So within that first period, nothing had changed for me. I stepped on the scale. I was 214 pounds, which is usually I hover around 210, 215. It was right after Thanksgiving, so maybe that's where a little of the extra came from. I'm 6'3", and that's kind of just my normal weight when I'm not incredibly dialed in. And I do have news to tell you towards the end of the show that I don't want to forget to tell you where it's some of my other focus as well, but I'll get to that, I promise. So anyway, I was 214 after the workout. Or when I first woke up, I weigh myself the same time every day so that it is consistent, or when I do weigh myself. And at this point, nothing's changing. Your body is still breaking down the food in your stomach. You're running on glucose, which if people don't understand where your energy levels come from, when you eat certain foods, it mainly comes from carbs, your stomach will break those down, and the energy used is something called glucose that's in the bloodstream. The way that your body gets energy normally throughout the day is you eat food and the food is broken down in your stomach. And glucose is pulled out of mostly carbohydrates in your food, and that's put into the bloodstream. The glucose is what gives your cells energy to work with. Insulin is created in the pancreas, and that insulin those are the taxi drivers that drive the glucose to all the different cells. That gives you your energy. Now, what happens is a lot of times when you're eating too frequently, there is a constant supply of glucose in the bloodstream. So your pancreas is constantly making insulin, but your cells can't take all that insulin, all that glucose in. So that gets stored as fat. And you get these constant insulin spikes, and you become insulin resistant in your cells, which is actually one of the major causes of all sorts of health issues. So I wanted to get this in check and kind of see how this is. So at this point in time, my body's still running on glucose. I started sipping on the element because I wanted to make sure that my electrolyte levels were high, my sodium was high, my magnesium and potassium. And those three things will allow you to not have as much fatigue and headache and that sort of thing. When I watched Limitless, I believe they were just doing a water fast. And obviously Dr. Attia is a medical doctor, so he's trained and can understand what to do. So as Chris Hemsworth was going through it, he had constant medical supervision. I didn't have that. And obviously I wasn't going to get to the point where I was going to pass out. I was taking this seriously, and I wasn't going to force myself or hurt myself going through this process. But the element, I will say, definitely helped. So at this point in time, nothing really different is happening. You know, I'm going through my life normally. Went to school. I'm a teacher, as I said. I was okay because I was excited to try this and I wanted to see the health benefits. So I was fine in the morning. Kids usually eat snack around 10:30, and they're pulling out all sorts of good stuff. Sometimes they bake me things, and I was really glad they didn't, because I don't want to tell them I wasn't eating for 96 hours because I didn't think they'd understand the reasoning behind it. And I didn't want that out there. So I was happy I didn't have to pretend to eat something that they brought me, because that's usually really good. Anyway, day went by normally. I'm just sipping on the element. Nothing big happens. I will say by the end of the day, though, I was getting bad headaches. And I don't know if that's because I'd been awake since 2 and I was just tired. I'm thinking that's what it was looking back. But that was really my biggest struggle that day. I was a little bit hungry, but nothing too crazy. The cool thing was, at about 18 hours, that is when something called autophagy kicks in. And that's when your cells are using the stuff inside them that's kind of damaged or waste, and they're recycling that to reuse for energy and to kind of get rid of. So your cells start cleaning themselves out between the 16 and the 18-hour mark. And also, once your glucose is completely gone from your stomach and the food that you eat, your body then switches to something called ketones. And this is created in the liver, where your body takes fat from your fat cells, fatty acids, and it pulls them in, and it's creating ketones in your liver. And then your body starts running off these ketones. How am I going to have energy? Your body is using what fat is actually stored for in that regard, so that you can actually have energy. So you're breaking down the fat that's really hard to break down. And a lot of the fat that's being broken down is visceral fat. There are 2 types of fats. There's your subcutaneous fat. That's the fat you can grab onto and squeeze. And then there's the visceral fat. And I don't know if you've seen people who have, they have a large belly, but it's hard as a rock. That's visceral fat, because that's the fat that's stored around the organs. This is the very, very dangerous fat. And the best way to get rid of visceral fat is to do this fasting, because when your body is creating energy, creating these ketones, it's pulling the fatty acids from mostly that visceral fat. It'll get it from subcutaneous as well, but the visceral fat. And again, I'm not a doctor. This is how I might be making mistakes here and there, but this is the main idea. This part is accurate. So right now, my body is pretty much running on ketosis. And when you hear about keto diets and the keto diet, this is what they're talking about, is getting your body in a state of ketosis where you're not pulling in carbs. So you're running on ketones as opposed to glucose. 18 minutes. Another great thing that's happening right now is my insulin levels have dropped to a baseline, because they're not needed to bring glucose all over my body. So this is what happens with type 2 diabetes, is when you build up this insulin resistance, and then the insulin gets stuck in your bloodstream. So one of the best things to do here, and that this is basically from what I've read and what I've seen in people's stories. So again, I'm just kind of relaying information that I've read, is one great way to help combat type 2 diabetes is going through these fasting periods. So your body is resetting your insulin levels. So it's not in your bloodstream as much. But right now, my insulin's dropped, my autophagy is up, and my ketones are going. That's day one. Day two, I went to bed. I actually fell asleep okay. When I woke up, I felt great. The headache was completely gone and I had energy and I was excited to go to the gym. I still worked out, and the research I saw said continue to work out. You want to do some sort of resistance training or push yourself, but don't go overboard. And I probably underdid it because it was the first time I did the fast. I didn't want to overdo it and then have to stop at 36 or 48 hours, whatever it happened to be. But I was not that hungry at all. I went through the day and I didn't need food. I didn't feel that need. I definitely had some cravings where I wanted to eat stuff, but I felt good. You can also, at this point, black coffee is fine and green tea is fine. You can have those two things. I'm not a coffee drinker. I never have been. In the tea, I didn't really love. I was trying to even get rid of the caffeine piece of it. But if you're someone who runs on caffeine a lot, you can definitely still introduce those things. But at this point, the autophagy is still going strong. The ketones I'm in full ketosis at this point in time. So your brain is fueled by ketones, which actually the brain prefers getting the ketones in there. So, this was 16. In terms of with autophagy, I want to kind of reiterate this piece. This is cellular repair. This is taking the old damaged cells throughout your body, which you're going to have a lot of, and they are repairing themselves. This doesn't happen when you're in a fed state. It just doesn't kick in. Your cells aren't going to be doing this. They're too busy digesting food and going through those processes. If you want to get to this point, you need to hit that 16 to 18 hour mark to start autophagy. So at this point in time, I am well into 36 hours at this point. And I know all that stuff is going on. I think that also made it easier because I understood what was happening in my body. So I knew even if, again, I wasn't really hungry. Food cravings were definitely there. I knew what was going on and the benefit of it. And I knew as I progressed further, different things were going to happen that only would occur after a certain amount of time. Once I got through day 2 and into day 3, that's when your human growth hormone, the levels really, really increase. And I saw a whole bunch of different numbers, but it seemed to range between 5 times and 300 times the normal amount of human growth hormone, depending on a bunch of different factors. Everybody's different. But even 5 times the normal amount, that is a significant amount. Also, stem cells, and for those who are unaware, stem cells are like, you might not get this analogy, but I think of it like you have an athlete in a football program. Sometimes if a football team in college recruits someone who plays wide receiver, they only play wide receiver. Some cells, the cells that we have in our body, they are, blood cells or they are muscle tissue or whatever it happens to be. They are already picked. But there are some schools who will pull in who's called an athlete. They don't know the position yet. They're going to put that athlete into their system and figure out where that person fits best. And then they're going to mold them into what they need them to be, whether it be a wide receiver, running back, maybe a tight end, maybe a defensive back or a safety or an outside linebacker, whoever it happens to be, they're an athlete. This is what stem cells are. They are whatever they need to be. Your body brings them into a certain part and they transform into that cell that's needed. So the stem cells first begin in the stomach and start fixing the stomach lining. And then as the time progresses, they start getting spread out to other aspects of the body where they are needed, which actually led to one of the coolest things that I had hoped for. But as I mentioned a few times, I have Achilles tendonitis has bothered me for years and it had gotten really bad over the summer where I teach with paint houses over the summer. I could only paint until 12 o'clock because being on the ladder with my foot flexed, the pain was brutal. I just physically couldn't do it. I was afraid of popping my Achilles while going up the ladder, which would have sucked. It felt better by day 3 and day 4 than it had felt in a very, very long time. I think that is not just based on the fast, I think one thing fasting does is it lowers inflammation. If you're eating processed foods, if you're eating sugary foods, those are going to raise your inflammation levels. I had no sugar, obviously, during this time, so my inflammation levels were way, way down. It started to heal far faster than it would have otherwise. I went out, today is Sunday. It's 1 week after I started the fast. I stopped at Thursday night, so Friday, Saturday, so 2.5 days after. I ran today. It wasn't a full sprint, but 75 to 80%. I haven't been able to do that since May or June. I'm not saying the fasting is the only reason. Like I said, I think there are a lot of variables that fasting helped correct, but it was an amazing transformation. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact I was allowing my body to heal itself, which if you're in a constant fed state, that just doesn't happen. I'm not saying you need to go to 96 hours to get these benefits. They're just magnified the longer that you go. So that was a huge, huge thing for me. Was once I hit day 3, I noticed it didn't hurt at all just walking. And I was bummed because I had to cancel my Thursday physical therapy appointment. The physical therapist had realized that this issue was stemming from tight hip flexors and tight hamstrings, and that was just kind of trickling down to the Achilles. And she gave me Celine and John, shout out, you guys are the best. I was laying, you lay on your back, you keep your good leg straight, you bend your hurt leg at the knee, and you grab behind your knee so you're on your back, that leg's up, and the foot's flopped down. You try to raise your foot up as straight as you can get it to go. I couldn't get it at 90 degrees. My knee couldn't get it all the way straight. It was definitely bent. I went this morning and tried it again. It was close to 100% straight. I probably gained 15 or 20 degrees of flexion there, which is remarkable considering where I was a week ago. So that has been a big, big piece. And then that's really what happens between that 72 and 96 hour mark. A lot of the returns become diminished after you get to the 72 hours when you're in terms of autophagy and ketosis in that aspect of it. But once you get past that, that's when the healing comes. Old injuries, that you've had for a while, the body can repair that a lot better. So about the 72-hour mark where it was probably, 72 hours. I wasn't hungry. I really, really wanted food. We all have those bad days, and sometimes I resort to food to feel better. That's probably one of my crutches. But it was a tough, tough day. Emotionally, I was struggling. And I honestly, I was so tempted to be like, 72 hours is good enough. I'm going to eat some food. I distracted myself. I gave myself 5 or 10 minutes. And I'm like, all right, just, you can be a little baby for a little bit and then suck it up. And you've got a day to go. You can do this. So once I got past that point, it was awesome. The next day I felt truly accomplished because I knew I could do it. Like, you wake up in the morning, you can wait till dinner to eat. Key takeaways from this that I noticed. The Achilles felt better, like I said. That was awesome. Mental clarity was phenomenal. I was thinking much more deeply. I remember doing the walk, and sometimes I'll turn on the voice chat with Chat GPT, and I'll, what I'm thinking through, I'll just talk to it and it'll kind of give me some feedback. And this way I can keep a running list of my notes just while I'm walking if I can't write stuff down. And I planned out what I actually wanted to get out of the show over the next year or so. My buddy Matt is getting married next December to a phenomenal woman. I'm so happy for both of them. And Matt actually never misses a show. So Matthew, I'm proud of you, buddy. Really happy for you. And Amanda, you definitely are marrying up though. I'm not going to lie. But I was thinking to myself, all right, by this time next year, we will have just had their wedding. I know I need to accomplish certain things with this show and what I want it to be. The level of depth I was going into, and I'm going to outline it in a future show, exactly what I want to get out of this. It was amazing. I don't often get into that deep, of, I don't know, philosophical or spiritual, or whatever you want to call it, but it had a big effect there. I felt a huge sense of accomplishment. when I was done with this. It was something tough that I did and I accomplished. So now if I want to do a 72-hour fast, I know that's tough, but I've done a 96. So thinking of a 72, it's like, all right, well, that's not hard. I already did a 96, but not even in terms of fasting. If there's something else hard I want to try, which, um, I have another challenge set up. I'll say at the very end, I'm not questioning whether or not I can do it. I'm questioning what will I get out of it. So that was awesome. Weight loss, I dropped 8 pounds in 4 days. It went from 214.8 down to, it was right at 207. So roughly 8 pounds. Now, when I say that, and I was worried about talking about the weight loss piece, is some of it's coming back on. That's just the way it is. Once you start reintroducing food into the body, it'll come back on. I've put on 3.5 of those pounds again. So right around 210, but it was done not for weight loss purposes. It was done for all the other health benefits. So in my mind, it was, whatever, that's maybe a cherry on top if that's something they're looking for. But that was a piece of it that should not, and I hope it isn't the main factor. And then I just had such a big appreciation for food that when I got home, we had a staff meeting and I stopped by the supermarket. I got haddock, I got roasted veggies that I made. And this part I want to make clear. You hear a couple different schools of thought, but the main one I heard was bone broth beforehand. That way you are able to kind of reintroduce some food into your system before you go diving right into something big. And I have seen people talk about their fasting experience where they'll sip on bone broth throughout it. That's not going to be a fast because you are putting glucose into the bloodstream and you have to create insulin. The goal of the fast should be to just cancel out insulin for however many days you want to. So if you're introducing bone broth throughout it, you're not actually in a fasted state, scientifically. So not knocking anybody else. This is just what I have learned along the way. But you have bone broth like an hour beforehand. I filled a cup and I was just sipping on it while I was prepping my food. And I took my time, I prepped it. And the first bite and it was vegetables. It was broccoli, carrots, I think cauliflower. I tell you what else was in there. And it was so good. And I actually chewed my food and enjoyed it. And I think I probably had too much haddock. I had a pound of haddock, but it was wicked good. That was enjoyable as well. And the whole meal I probably ate, I was just eating on my own. It was like half an hour where I just sat and I ate and I just enjoyed the food. Then after that though, I cooked more, like meal prep for the week. I made healthy. They were supposed to be like crumble cookies. They actually weren't that good. They tasted more like crumble cake. They weren't bad. They took the time to make those. I had found a couple recipes online that used pumpkin and other stuff that was much healthier. I made some chicken sandwiches for the week or grilled chicken patties that were very, very minimal, clean, healthy stuff. And I had some chicken. I had some burritos that I made all this stuff and I was cooking for almost 3 hours and it went by quickly. So I had that enjoyment of eating and I wasn't craving junk. I didn't go and get donuts or candy or ice cream. I love ice cream, but it was just a really, really good experience. So that's the experience I had. I enjoyed it. I felt better. So because of that, I am going to be doing a 96-hour fast 3 times a year, every 4 months. I also, during the process, saw the benefits of a 36-hour fast once a month. So I think the first of every month, I'll do a 36-hour fast. And what I'm going to do for the next 2 weeks leading up to the Monday before the Christmas holidays is I am eating nothing but I'm going for meat, fish, eggs, fruits, and vegetables. That's what I'm going to be consuming. I had a positive effect with this. I want to try this other challenge and see how I feel afterwards. If I can continue while eating to still feel as good as I did there. I'm going to be fasting for 24 hours once a week. That will most likely be Sunday night to Monday night. And then I'm going to eat I'm going to eat in an 18 to 6 window. So I'll fast for 18 hours and then eat in a 4 to 6 hour window. I'll do that for 5 of the days. And then the final day I'll eat in a regular window leading up to my 24-hour fast. So that's what I'm going to try and do for 2 weeks. So if anybody wants to join me, I'd love to see how you feel. A lot of this is kind of leading up to an awesome opportunity I have. Sheed from All Muscle Service called me over the Thanksgiving break. I'm like, dude, I got something for you. They're inviting me to Cleveland in May, where I will be commentating an event that All Muscle Service is hosting, where they from Cleveland are competing against, and this is as of now, I think more people will be joining, another Cleveland calisthenics group. Detroit, Chicago, St. Louis, and Indy, I believe, are all going, with more registrations coming in. I think there were 8 in total that are planning on showing up. He's invited me to come down and do commentary, do interviews for the 2-day event, which is a huge opportunity that I'm super blessed and thankful for. The thing is, if you want to see what athletes can do, these guys, they do muscle ups like most people do push-ups, where if you can do 30, 40 push-ups straight, these guys are doing those with muscle ups. They are in phenomenal shape. I can't show up to this event and not be able to do muscle ups like that. I have to be able to do that if I'm going to go. So a lot of this nutrition piece is about trying to get the most physically out of what I'm capable of doing. And I know that's not simply done in the gym. It's your rest, it's your recovery, it's your nutrition, it's also your mindset, and it is that physical piece as well. So I'm trying to tie everything together. So when I go May 22nd, May 23rd, then I can get on the bar with those guys and be able to perform. I don't think the 6 months is enough time to even get to their level, but I am curious to see what I can accomplish in that time. So that is my recap on what I did with the 96-hour fast. I'm going to be turning this whole thing into a YouTube vlog, which will have a lot more graphs and details and show the actual studies that I followed and the videos and stuff like that. But if this is something you're interested in trying, and you have any questions, my Instagram stuff will be in the description. You can leave comments here, wherever you happen to be watching. I found it incredibly beneficial. Everybody's different though. If this is something you want to do, check with your doctor, check with your spouse or your parents, whoever it happens to be. But it is really, really beneficial for me and what I found. So I would love to help out. If you have any questions, I'm happy to hop on a phone call with you too. I'm not charging you for this. I'm just excited for this and I saw the benefits. So if it's something that you have questions on, hit me up and we'll find a time to talk through and I can answer any questions that you have. So yeah, I guess that's the end of this show. Thank you all for taking the time to listen, and I hope you have a wonderful week this week.